I'm Christy Hemingway, host of Ed Curation, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Ninth Grade Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Cole Stuchko. Ninth grade can be challenging. Let's experience it together. And today, we're going to do a different kind of open. Usually, we do a separate open from the actual interview, but today, we're going to do the whole thing together since it is our last episode of the season featuring my son, Cole, here for the 4th edition of the Cole Cast. So we haven't had one since December. I took a look. So we have a lot to update and a lot to kind of look back on. But thanks a lot to everybody throughout the course of this school year for supporting the podcast. We're going to keep doing new episodes all through the summer. So make sure you're going to ninthgradeexperience.com for new episodes or previous episodes. We're still going to be posting on TikTok and YouTube Shorts and all the other stuff. So, you know, we've had a really exciting school year, especially with social media and all the other stuff. So we're excited today to bring you the final episode of the Cole Cast. Maybe he'll come on as a 10th grader, who knows, but definitely his last one as a 9th grader here. So we're happy to kind of sit down today for a couple minutes here on the next to last day of school. School just ended, so we're recording before the last day tomorrow because everyone's going to want to go home. So we're going to want to make sure that everyone's doing what they need to do. So Cole, thanks a lot for joining us here. And we're excited to kind of recap your year here. Now that you have officially, with all your grades being in, you are now officially a 10th grader. So congratulations. You did make it. I don't think anyone doubted you, but, you know, you kind of overcame some struggles there a little bit that we might have talked about on some of the earlier podcasts. So we haven't seen you since December on the show. So what have you been up to?
Well, since December, the basketball season ended. I started playing tennis, and now everything is done at school.
So he covered 6 months in about 45 seconds. So obviously we're going to unpack some of that stuff as well too. But yeah, so you finished off basketball season. You guys finished, 16-4 for basketball?
Yep.
So what was that experience like for you finishing up the season? I know when we talked in December, you had just made the team. You had just gotten into the swing of things. So what was it like being part of the Emmaus basketball program as a freshman?
It was exciting. You know, we got to meet a lot of new people and learn a lot about the game and what they expect from you at like the next level of basketball. It's going to be exciting this coming season because we're getting a new coach for JV. So we'll be, you know, along the ride with him, you know, learning everything that we're still learning while he's learning stuff too. And it's going to be exciting with him joining. Yeah.
So they already have you out there. They have you practicing and playing and doing open gyms and summer league and all that other stuff. So, you know, basketball's all the way around, it seems now. So you kind of have that. So you finished up basketball in February. You had a couple weeks off, and sticking on the sports theme here, you decided that you were going to play tennis. Now, you've said this to teammates and you've said this to other people, but before you tried out for the tennis team this year, how many competitive tennis matches have you ever played in?
Oh, 0.
So Cole plays tennis with our, you know, in our family and kind of does some stuff, but he decided, actually last year, I think you decided that you were going to try out for tennis really no matter what. So
it was a push from my parents to try to do a spring sport. They kept trying to want me to do volleyball, but I don't really want to play volleyball, so I decided on tennis instead.
So as a freshman, how many freshmen tried out for tennis?
Oh, just one. Me.
So literally you were the freshman, the 9th grade experience on the tennis team this year. So what was that like kind of for you, deciding a sport that you had never really played competitively? You knew the game, you kind of knew the rules and all the other stuff, but you had never played tennis competitively. For you to do that as a 9th grader and to try out, what was that like for you to kind of make that ultimate decision to do it?
Well, it was definitely tough because, you know, going into it, I'm like, well, I go to like the first like practice they have and it's freezing cold and kids are in like winter coats and pants. I'm like out there just trying to do my best. I'm starting to learn more and more about the guys. And I realized that I'm probably going to be the only like freshman trying out and that there's not really a lot of like, you know, people that were trying out for tennis. But we had a full team this year, which was good. And we had, I think, a winning record. and some of the guys made it all the way to like state tournaments. So it's not like our season was a complete like failure by any means. So yeah.
And it's, comparing freshman basketball. I think we talked about this when in the December episode a little bit. How many freshmen tried out for freshman basketball? Just for freshmen. 70-ish freshmen tried out for just freshman basketball. And you were the only freshman in your class of however many boys that tried out for tennis. So it's a really interesting mix of the two there, where you kind of had the opportunity to like actually make a sport as a varsity athlete. So you did play, you got varsity time, so you got a varsity letter. So that's awesome, So what was that experience like, being the only freshman on a team full of upperclassmen and some people that actually knew each other pretty well from previous time together?
So it's definitely a bit stressful because like a lot of these guys have like friends in classes and they're all like in like similar classes and stuff. But I'm like the only one kind of doing my like own thing. And like, sometimes I don't get like the messages or updates right away because there was a time where like, like our bus schedule was changed, like our match schedule was changed. And like if let's just say like one person to get the message and like their friends would tell them, but I don't really have like anyone else to like rely on to get the word to me. So like I didn't check it or I didn't get the message. I was just completely like left out of the water. And going back to the question of like what it's like, I didn't really have anyone to like talk to at first or like relate at first because they're all talking about like, what they're doing in college, what their GPA is looking like talking about like studying for the SATs. And I'm just out here, can't even drive yet. I'm the only one on the team that couldn't drive. So I'm just, it's definitely different.
Yeah, and I know you had that experience throughout the season where like people were like meeting up to go to places or like, different things. And of course you couldn't drive yourself there. So you had to like depend on us to get you there or depend on maybe your teammates, which I don't know if you got a ride with any of them anywhere, but it is unique because like I said, like a lot of times if freshmen try out for sports or something, there's usually other freshmen that are trying out for the sport at the same time. So tennis was definitely a difference. So do you have if freshmen, like upcoming freshmen next year are listening or, any of your friends?
I think the next year's freshman class will definitely be more than one. It will probably be at least a few kids. So it's going to be good that, the program's actually getting new people. It's just kind of weird that I'm the only one this year, but hopefully we get some more people. I mean, we're losing, I think, like 7 or 8 kids to graduation. And then the next year, we're going to be losing probably at least like 7 or 8 again. I was the only freshman. There were 2 sophomores and there were 7 seniors and the rest were juniors. So we're going to be losing a lot of people to graduation soon. So we're going to have to make up the numbers with the new freshman class and then the class after that.
So in terms of sports or clubs or activities or anything, what would you say to upcoming freshmen about joining something that you may be the only person that you know of in your friend group because none of your other friends play tennis?
No.
What would you say to that? Because I know a lot of times kids want to join things that their friends are a part of. Yeah. So what would you say to somebody that's just like, I'm really into this sport, or this activity, and I don't really know a lot of people, but I still want to do it anyway?
So like, let's just say you were trying out for a sport like golf, right? Where like, you're the only one that plays golf like competitively, and all your other friends like, know about golf and know the rules, but they don't really understand like, the game of golf, for example. Just going out and trying, you're going to make people in the tryout process too. Like they're going to be nervous just like you are. And they're going to look to like latch on and like have small talk and to kind of distract themselves. So you're going to make friends that way. And you're also going to, learn something new and try something new and hopefully mentor the people that are coming in next who may not have the same like experience that you did.
So a lot of times on the show, we focus on like extracurriculars, that kind of stuff. But obviously your number one goal is student athlete or student, performer. So talk about like how your classes kind of ended this year. You had to kind of recover and rebound, especially, in your math class, which I think we talked a little bit about at the beginning, but we didn't give exact numbers. But for you to earn the grades that you wanted to earn this year, you really had to buckle down with your math class that you were in.
Yeah.
So what was that like for you, knowing like for the rest of the school year, since we haven't spoken on the podcast since December, you had to go through midterms, you had to go through third market period, fourth market period, and finals. knowing what you needed to get for the year to
Yeah.
get that certain grade.
Yeah, for like the incoming freshman, I would definitely put high importance on like the midterm exam and like the second and third quarter, because those are kind of like make or break. So like if you do well like the second quarter, the third quarter, and the midterm, you don't put so much weight on like the final, where you can manage to get a lower than normal score for you in order to still get the grade you want. So like let's just say you want an A and you get all A's like the first like 4 quarters of the year, and you get like a B on the midterm, you might only have to get like a 70 to get the A in the class. So, pushing through in the beginning so that you have an easier end of the year is probably something that I would recommend, because, around this time kids are, going on vacations, going on weekend trips, around, especially around like Memorial Day, a lot of kids are missing a big part of school. So like putting your best foot forward in the beginning and then, making it a lot easier on yourself in the end is definitely something I would recommend.
And that was something you did learn. You had to learn because you had your math score wasn't the greatest in the first marking period. And you then had to really work for the rest of the year. And, we've talked about that, like about your, what happened in that marking period. And that's a huge adjustment coming up to the high school. You had that more difficult class where you kind of weren't expecting a little bit. And, you know, like when you go up for a shot and you get blocked, you kind of have to recover and figure out what you did.
Yeah.
And I think you did that. So how did you, like, what was some of the process for you to be able to get yourself back on track after that, shaky first mark?
So like, even if you're like, good with like a certain like subject or like a certain topic you're covering, definitely ask the teacher for help. And, I don't know if they're going to keep Hornet homeroom next year, but Hornet homeroom is a really good time to go because usually there's not that many kids like a Hornet homeroom. There might only be like 15 to like 20, not usually like a full class size. So there'll be less people in there where, the teacher can usually focus on just you or like just you and another person. So like going for help for like math or English or something like that, where you can work one-on-one with like topics that you're struggling with, is something I would recommend. Or like help them review for a quiz is something that I did a lot this year, which helped me, get ready for like a quiz or a test, and just making sure I know all the material in the chapters.
And that was something that you started doing like after the midterm time, is like you really took advantage of that Hornet homeroom time. And I think for all students to take advantage of the opportunity to meet with teachers, to kind of have that, extra time when you're struggling with something, I think is an important message too. Like, a lot of times during Hornet homeroom or like during those free times, people don't want to do extra stuff. They just want to kind of chill on their phones and all the other things.
Yeah.
So they don't necessarily like,
they're not like loud and like ranty, then you're like distracted.
yeah. And maybe those environments aren't the best to kind of get work done. So you did learn that. You also learned a little bit of a tough lesson. In one of your classes, you missed the grade that you wanted by a few points. And you kind of figured out that if you would have done a couple of different assignments throughout the course of the year, maybe you could have had a different score. So that was kind of a bummer, but what do you take away from that experience of kind of making sure you're doing the things you need to do?
Yeah, just make sure you do like the little things and make sure you remember to like turn in on assignments on time or like unsubmit, resubmit stuff, and make sure that that like all the points count, especially in the beginning of the year. Because, if you miss like one or two assignments in the first marking period, you can't go back when it's the end of the year and recomplete them. The grade book's closed. So like you want to make sure you do everything in the beginning, and then if you miss it like one assignment at the end of the year, which you forgot to turn in or whatever, it doesn't impact your grade as heavily.
Yeah, and it's, sometimes it is the difference between 5 points, 10 points, and when it's the next to last day of school, it's tough to make up 5-10 points when everything's kind of been done. So, making sure that you're doing the work that you need to do all year. So, you shared a lot of good things so far with sports. You shared a lot of good things in the classroom. What is something else? Any other like big takeaways from your freshman year? Like, what was it like, making friends? Now I know you came in with friends from the middle school and like people that you kind of knew, but like, were you able to like kind of make new friends, and what was that process kind of like?
So like obviously I came in with a lot of friends from like LMS, my middle school, but I got to meet like other people from IRE, which I knew like previously, or like, people, and then people introduced me to like other people from IRE, which they knew. So like through like a mutual connection. And, that helped me get to know a lot more people than I did before. because obviously at LMS, it's not like as big as a group of all the people coming in from IRE, like private schools like St. Thomas More or whatever. All those people are coming to Emmaus that I've never met before. So like 2 times the amount of people from like LMS are like here at Emmaus. So it's a lot different and it's a lot more people to manage. Like you don't have to like know everyone or like get to like everyone.
Yeah. So you kind of hit all the big markers that we always like talk about here on the show, getting involved, academics, like trying to make friends, that kind of stuff. So if you were to kind of give one big takeaway, like one overall, like the thing that defined or you learned from your own ninth grade experience this year, what do you think it would be?
To make sure you're up to date on your grades, because grades are like grades influence a lot of things. For example, like at like when the quarter like first starts, right? A lot of kids become ineligible for sports. I'm not saying I was, but a lot of kids become ineligible for sports because let's just say they get like a 5 out of 10 on one assignment in like 2 or 3 classes, and the grade report goes out that weekend. You're ineligible even though your teacher's only done one thing, and you're ineligible for the whole week. So you want to make sure you're up to date on your grades and doing well when the quarter hits. You're not like ineligible or you don't put your spot where you have to play catch up the whole marking period because you get bad grades on 2 assignments and they're weighing your whole grade down. You don't want to have to play catch up the whole rest of the marking period or the whole rest of the year. So make sure to be up to date on your grades and make sure to be, ready for like tough assignments at the beginning of the quarter, which really count a lot more than some of the ones you may receive at like the end of the quarter or end of the year.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good takeaway, like good message for students. And we talk about that a lot of like, making sure your ninth grade experience counts, the grades count. We're already now at the end of your ninth grade year starting to think about like colleges, career stuff. So like I think that's a great message for our upcoming freshmen to kind of make sure that you take the time to do the assignments, whether it's at the beginning of the year, the beginning of the marking periods, or any of those time periods. So being on the podcast for now the 4th time, you actually were on maybe a little bit more during the COVID shutdown too, but like for the 4th time, like what do you take away from being on the podcast? Anything that,
Well, it's definitely grown from when we started it. We did an episode on the first day of school, and it's basically developed a lot. And kids in the school know way more about it than I bet they did like last year. And maybe that's because of like the TikTok and the social media being out there, or maybe it's just me being on the ground like telling people about it like randomly. But yeah, I think that the podcast has definitely grown in we've been in school like 9 months.
Yeah. So yeah, we've had, I think we're all close to almost 400,000 views on TikTok, and we're out there doing stuff, and it's a unique opportunity to finally have one of my kids kind of come through the high school at 9th grade. So I was excited for this year to be able to share stories, as long as Cole wanted to share stories of his 9th grade year. So I appreciate him taking the time to always talk with us and talk openly and honestly about, what his year was like and those kinds of things. I know sometimes we have to ask him some difficult questions, so he answered them pretty well. So do you have anything else you want to leave people with as we kind of move off into the summer here?
No, not really.
No, anything you're looking forward to?
Our trip to Williamsburg.
Yep, we're leaving for that next week, and then who knows where we'll be in August as well too. And probably before you know it, we'll be back here at school for the start of the next school year. And you'll have to be the 10th grade experience coordinator for that, but we'll see how that goes. And again, thanks a lot for joining us, Cole. And again, like we said at the beginning, if you want to take a look at any of our other episodes, you can search for Colecast on ninthgradeexperience.com. You can see his first 3. And I did forget that we actually recorded on the actual first day of school. So here we are on the next to last day of school. We'll call it the last day of school. And, we've come a full circle here in 180 school days. Not that much snow. We beat the wildfires in today. So it's been quite a year, quite a lot of stories. So I'm glad to be able to have this. We can look back on it, and, who knows, when you're a senior, you'll have to come back on and recap how you did for the 4 years, since who knows how much you'll be on. And at that point, your sister will be up here, and it'll be, crazy stuff. So we're excited to have that. So again, go to ninthgradeexperience.com if you want any of the previous episodes. And we look forward to continue to bring you the content over the summer. And if you kind of sign off here and don't come back until the start of next school year, have a great summer. we're excited. I will be here because I'm doing summer school in ESY, so I'll be here a little bit too. So I'll be able to get you the 9th grade experience of summer school. Maybe we'll kind of do an episode or two on that. So again, thanks for joining us. Have a great summer. And again, thanks to Cole for joining us for the 4th installment of the Colecast.